Hey everyone, welcome back to the Shubham Compiled Tech channel, and today we are going to practically learn about HTML tables, which are one of the most important concepts in HTML. Throughout this video, you will learn how to create a HTML table, what is a table row and column, table header, body and footer, what is col span and row span, etc. concepts. So let us start by asking a question that what is an HTML table? And the answer is that HTML table help us organize data such as student records, price list or timetables. They make information easier to read and understand. HTML tables allow web developers to arrange data into rows and columns. So how do you define a table in HTML? Well, a table in HTML consists of table cells inside rows and columns, and each table cell is defined by a td start and end tag, which stands for table data. A table cell can contain all sorts of HTML elements such as text, images, lists, links, etc. In simple words, we can define an HTML table by using the table tag, and inside it we used tr tag for defining table rows and td tag to define table data. So for example, let's create a students table. So first we write the table start and end tag here, then a tr tag, let's say tr tag for defining the table row, and then a td tag to define the table data. So here we will say students, or let's just say student name here, and then define another table data called country here, and below this let's also define one more table row for defining the values here, and inside it let's write our table data here. So let's write Shubham first, and then its country, let's say United States. Then we need to add another table row here, and let's define the table data as Alex, and td for country also let's define country here Europe, and below this let's also define one more table row actually, and inside it let's also define another student name which is Vishal, and table data, another table data for our country, that is, let's say, India only. So if we now save it and open our index.html file in the web browser, we can see that our student name is here and country is here. Then we have our student name as Shubham, Alex and Vishal, and country as United States, Europe and India. Now you will say that, sir, the content is visible and structured, but we can't really see the table. So for this we can add an attribute to our table called border. So let's add an attribute here and called border with the value of border thickness. Let us just say 1 here. And if we now save and refresh our index.html page, we can see that the HTML table does exist in our web page, and now the rows and columns are clearly outlined. Now you can have as many rows as you like in a table. Just make sure that the number of cells are the same in each row. Next, we have table headers. Sometimes you want your cells to be table header cells, and in those cases we use the th tag instead of td tag, which stands for table header. By default, the text in th tags are bold and centered. So if we go to our table here and let's define th instead of td here, so which is stands for table header, and let's also do the same for country here. So if we now save and refresh our index.html web page here, we can see that the student name and country are in bold and center also because of the th tag, which stands for table header. Now we can not only have horizontal headers for our table, we can also have vertical headers for our HTML table. Let me show you an example of this also. So let's go to our Visual Studio Code here and let's create a new table here, and before that let's add a BR element here to introduce line breaks and to separate the our table and below table also. So table, and give it a border of 1 only, and then we need to write our table row, and then the first table header, let's just say student name. So student name, and below this let's write our table data also. So let's just say Shubham, and then another table data here, let's call it Alex, and another table data here, let's call it Vishal only. And below this let's add another table row here also and give it a title table header also. So let's add table header instead of table data, and let's add a country here, and let's define the country of Shubham first. So it will be United States, and then another table data of our Alex student here, and let's just define it Europe, and then another table data here, and let's just say India. So if we now save and refresh our index.html5 in the browser, you can see that our headers are now placed vertically instead of horizontally. So we can also do that. I'm just showing it to you for better understanding. And yeah, it's cool. Now alongside headers, we also have something called table caption, which allows us to add a caption that serves as a heading for the entire table with the help of the caption tag. So for this, let's go to our Visual Studio Code here and add a table caption here. Just below the table here, let's write caption element, and inside it let's define the table caption here, and let's just say BCA students, and for next table let's add a caption here also and say MCA students. So if we now save and refresh our index.html file, you can see that we have a table caption here called BC students and another table with caption MCA students. Important thing to know that here is that the caption tag should be inserted immediately after the table tag. Otherwise, we can have a weird behavior with our table. So next we have some tags which is used to define the structure of the HTML table, such as the T head tag which is used to define the table header. Then we have the T body tag to define the main content of the table, and lastly we have tfoot tag to define the footer of the table. So to help visualize the table, let's create a new table in our index.html file here. Let's delete the entire code here and let's create a new table here with caption. Let's also define the caption here and write person table here, and then below this let's add our table head tag here. So inside this we can group our table headers here. So let's first write person1 and then just copy paste this for 2 times, and let's just say person2 and person3. Then we can define our table body here with the body tag which groups the table body content. So let's add a new table row here, and we also need to add a table row here, and we can cite and paste the content here. So let's paste it here, format the code, and let's just write the table data here called Shubham, and another table data with name Vishal, and another table data with name Alex. And let's also define the table footer here just for better visualization. So let's add tfoot tag here, and inside it let's write a new table row, and let's add the ages of our person. So let's write age of Shivam, let's write 18. Then let's write another table data here, and let's define the age of Vishal, let's just say 23. And another table data for Alex age, let's just define 60 here. So if we now save and go to our index.html file here and refresh the page, we can see that our person table is now visible. And let's also add border to it. So let's border attribute, let's define it 1, the thickness, and let's just refresh the page again here. So we can see that we have no visual changes in our table here because the table header, table body and table footer elements are used to just structure the data in the code. Next we have HTML table call span and row span attributes, which are used to span over multiple rows or columns. So if we talk about the call span attribute, we can make a cell span over multiple columns by using the call span attribute and passing it a numerical value such as 2 or 3 to span over 2 or 3 number of columns. So for this, let's go to our Visual Studio Code here and delete the code here. So let's keep our table caption here, and below this let's add a new table row here and define table headers for our person tables. So first will be name and then the age here. So let's add also table header of age. And now what we can do here is that we can add an attribute to our name table header here called call span and pass it a value like 2 or 3 to span over 2 or 3 cells, or I should call it table cells. So let's add another table row here for adding data here. So let's add table data of actually table data. Let's add a name Shubham, then add another name here called Alex, and then define the age of both of them. So let's just say 23, and then I'll define another table row here with table data such as let's add Vishal, and then another name here called Deepak, and their age, let's also define their age as let's just say 28. So if we now save it and go to our index.html file here, web page here, and refresh the page, you can see that our name cell is taking two columns because we have defined the call span attribute to take the two number of cells here. So don't worry if you are confused here, because it takes times to learn HTML tables, and the more you practice the more you will learn about it and also make the notes of them for better learning here. And also we can do the same for our table row here. Also we can span over two table rows here. So let's actually see an example of this also. So we remove the call span from our table header here. So let's remove it from here, and instead of call span let's add a row span here with value of 2, and let's remove the table header of age from here and instead give it a value of Shubham as table data, and then a table data of another value, let's just say Vishal. And in the next row let's give it some more unique names. So let's add Dhruv here, so Dhruv, and in the next let's add Bob here, and in the next table row let's add a table heading here is instead of table data. So let's add table heading and call it age. So let's define the age of them. So what we can have is let's add 21. So if we now save and reload our web page here, you can see that the name is taking two rows here and there is a bug here. So let's remove it that also. So let's remove the table data from here and let's save it, and now refresh the index.html page here, and we can see that name is taking two rows and we have our names here Shubham, Dhruv, Vishal, Bob, and their age 21 and 28. So to quickly recap, what we have done so far is we learned about what is an HTML table and how to create it in the web page. Then we learned about tr and td tag to create table row and table data respectively in the table. Then we learned about how to structure the table data with the help of thead, tbody, and tfoot tag. Then we learned about how to give our HTML table a title using caption tag inside the table tag. Then we learned about some attributes such as call span and row span, which span over number of columns or rows, and much more. So if this video helped you in understanding HTML tables, please like the video, subscribe to the Shubham Compile Tech channel, comment your curious questions, and also follow me on Instagram. Link is in the description. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video. Happy coding.